What is up, Green Bay Packers fans? Welcome back to another episode of Tier 1 Fits for the Green Bay Packers. Today, we're going to be talking about edge rushers. If you've been watching and following the daily draft with Ross Uglum, he's been mentioning in our draft guide, we've got the Packer People Top 300 checklist by Jacob Morley. That is me. I am Jacob Morley. Make sure you're checking that out. If you have not already purchased the Packers draft guide, go get yourself one. It's scrolling on the bottom of the screen. It is in the comments. If you follow any of us on any of the social media platforms, it is there. It is readily available for you to go click the link. I think it's $9, $10, whatever it is. Less than a Chipotle burrito. Make sure you're getting yourself one so you can have that on draft day leading up to the draft. And be the smartest guy in the room. Like I mentioned earlier, my name is Jacob Morley. You can follow me on X or Blue Sky at Jacob Morley, where I'll be talking about a lot of this stuff there as well. Yesterday, we talked about corners. Today, we're going to talk about edge rushers. And again, just like corners, yesterday I told you, cornerback is a position that we know a lot about. There's a long history of them taking corners, and we know pretty much what they look for. For defensive end edge rushers, kind of the same boat. They like a very specific type of pass rusher. They kind of always have. They've deviated away from that a bit, but that was more when they went to a 3-4. And by that, I mean Clay Matthews would not be a tier 1 fit with the way it is set up. So love it or hate it. He's got more sacks than anyone in Green Bay, and he would not be a tier 1 fit. So that is important to keep in mind as well. But they do like a specific type of player. Vince Beagle was another one. It's too small. Would have been too small for what they like as a traditional 4-3 defensive end, or even when they ran a 3-4. They like those guys with their hands in the dirt at times. So looking back kind of at Green Bay's history, guys that have been tier 1 fits, Rashawn Gary is a great shining example because in that year's draft class, there were a bunch of dudes that we all liked, right? Brian Burns was one. Montez Sweat was another. Rashawn Gary was not by far and away, but notched those guys out just a tier above them as far as everything that Green Bay typically likes. And you look at what they like and how that transitions to the field. They like guys that are, long, dense, and explosive. Bendy, maybe not as much. You look at, I always go back to the Rashawn Gary versus Brian Burns comparison. You can debate all day who's been better. Both been good, both been really good. Burns was more of that kind of Gumby, explosive, bendy type of pass rusher. I prefer those types. Rashawn Gary was more of a power, run through your face, run defender with some explosive athleticism. That seems to be more what Green Bay prefers. If you remember Jonathan Garvin in his year's draft class, he was like one of two of the tier 1 types. Kingsley Enagbare was actually, even though he didn't test super well, he actually was a lot closer to being tier 1 than I think a lot of people realize. And then obviously Lucas Van Ness last year, he was 1 percentile point in the broad jump from being a tier 1 type. So he was technically tier 2, but dang, he was about as close as you can get. So they have a type. They have a mold that they like to go after. So what we're going to look at today is who is in this year's draft class that fits those molds. If you want the entire list, again, go buy the Green Bay draft guide. It is the very first article in there, the top 300 checklist. There are three guys in this entire draft class that are perfect fits for Green Bay. Like I said in the cornerback episode, we're not only going to talk about top 50 guys. We're going to talk about guys on day 2 and day 3 that Green Bay may target as well. A very popular name for the Packers has been Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. He actually misses being a tier 1 by like 1/4 of an inch on arm length, which is whatever. That would be similar to like the Van Ness pick last year, where you look at it and go, whatever, it's close enough. We just have to draw the line somewhere. We can't just keep making exceptions for things like that. So that's the numbers part of it. But he is not going to be on this list. When you look at it, you might be shocked to see that, but you'll see why when you look at it. Three guys on this list, two of them are absolutely in play at pick 23. And then one of them might be the guy they target in like round 3 or 4 if they miss out on one of these two guys on the first day. The player I'm going to talk about is it's going to be a shock to no one. He's like the best athlete that's ever tested at the combine, and that is Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. He's kind of cut from the same cloth as Rashawn Gary, big, explosive athlete with long arms. And it's interesting. They care a lot about long arms at the edge rusher position, which is super interesting because it doesn't seem like they really do if you're a pass blocker. But if you're a pass rusher, they do care about that. The other thing we talked about explosion, that is, broad jump, vertical jump. Look for those things. If you're a big 260, 270 pound man that can jump in the 80th percentile, 90th percentile, you're going to catch Brian Gutekunst's eye. He likes those guys, and for good reason. They've been able to hit on a lot of these pass rushers and edge rushers, like Zadarius Smith. Even maybe Zadarius Preston Smith, 100% would have been a tier 1 guy. Zadarius just proved that he could play, and they don't care as much at that point. So, guys in this year's class, again, Shamar Stewart. I don't need to talk about him a ton. He's been talked about ad nauseum everywhere because he just seems like an absolute packer. If he's there at pick 23, I do not know if Brian can physically not write his name down. That's just kind of been the player that they've loved to target in round 1. There is another player in round 1 that I think is in play at 23. By the guide, you'll see who it is. And then the guy that I think needs to be talked about the most on this, because he is kind of your middle of the draft type player, is Savion Jones from LSU. Big dude. I mean, he is a 6'5", 280 pound, 34-inch arm with a big time jumps. And the thing that's interesting about him as well, when you talk about like explosion, we don't have 10-yard split. That's not in the equation. It probably should be. I mean, but these guys, if you have big time jumps, typically your explosiveness off the line of scrimmage is really good as well. He's like a 90 something percentile 10-yard split in the 40-yard dash at 280 pounds. So he's a guy that I think will be really interesting to watch and see if Green Bay is interested in him, especially if they do not take a guy in round 1. I don't know. I don't know the earliest you can take someone like that is. I'd be surprised if it was round 2, and I'm not surprised at all if round 3 the pick comes in and it's Savion Jones out of LSU. Again, if they miss out on a guy in round 1. But they've also gone after guys, multiple positions. They're willing to double up on stuff. So that's someone to keep an eye on. There's one other guy in this year's draft class that could potentially be a tier 1. He just is missing testing. We might have that testing by draft day. You could probably piece that together. He's another top guy. And one thing you'll notice about the edge rusher position in general, these tier 1 types, they go early. I don't think it's a secret in the NFL that bigger, faster, stronger is important at the edge rushing position. And those are typically the guys with great tools that go early. There are guys, though, that fall through the cracks. I mean, Jonathan Garvin was a type like that, and he was a 7th-round pick. He didn't pan out to be a star in Green Bay, but he stuck around almost his entire rookie contract, was a contributor, and in the 7th round, that's a B-plus pick. So guys like that typically tend to work out a little bit more as well when they have those tools to rely on. But that is going to be it for me today, keeping it under 10 minutes for you guys. Going to try to keep it at that length every single day. We'll catch you guys next time. Be excellent to each other and go Pack Go.